Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Aditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om, may the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace. Peace be unto us and to all beloved, all your beloved children everywhere. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Tuesday evening class. Namaste. We, of course, are reading the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Our reader is Haima Naidu. And is there anything that anyone needs to discuss or wants to discuss before we begin our regular reading and discussion? Sorry for the delay this evening. There was a technical glitch. Computers are like that, particularly when they're in the hands of people who are not very well sighted. So that's the explanation for why we got a bit of a late start.
No problem, Guru Shankara.
So anything at all from anyone before we begin our reading and discussion of the text? All right, if you would just tell us where we are, Haima, and begin.
Good evening and namaste, everyone. I am on page 108 on PDF, and the topic is a very good one for all of us, advice to householders. So it's a great topic, and I will be starting on page 108 on PDF. You may have to go back 7 pages or something in the book. Okay, let me start now. Advice to householders. The master was conversing with Kedar and some other devotees in his room in the temple garden. Kedar was a government official and had spent several years at Dhaka in East Bengal, where he had become a friend of Vijay Goswami. Dhaka was the capital of East Bengal, which is now Bangladesh. It used to be part of India at one time. Just to clarify, the two would spend a great part of their time together talking about Sri Ramakrishna and his spiritual experiences. Kedar had once been a member of the Brahmo Samaj. He followed the path of bhakti. Spiritual talk always brought tears to his eyes. It was 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Kedar was very happy that day, having arranged a religious festival for Sri Ramakrishna. A singer had been hired by Ram, and the whole day passed in joy. And the next subtopic is Secret of Divine Communion. The master explained to the devotees the secret of communion with God. Master, with the realization of Satchit Ananda, one goes into Samadhi. Then duties drop away. Suppose I have been talking about the ostrich and he arrives. What need is there of talking about him then? How long does the bee buzz around? So long as it isn't sitting on a flower. But it will not do for the sadhaka to renounce duties. He should perform his duties such as worship, japa, meditation, prayer, and pilgrimage. If you see someone engaged in reasoning, even after he has realized God, you may liken him to a bee, which also buzzes a little even while sipping honey from a flower. The master was highly pleased with the Ostad's music. He said to the musician, "There is a special manifestation of God's power in a man who has any outstanding gift, such as proficiency in music." Musician asked, "Sir, what is the way to realize God?" Master, bhakti is the one essential thing. To be sure God exists in all beings. Who then is a devotee? He whose mind dwells on God. But this is not possible as long as one has egotism and vanity. The water of God's grace cannot collect on the high mound of egotism. It runs down. I am a mere machine. Master's respect for other faiths. Small topic. To Kedar and the other devotees. God can be realized through all paths. All religions are true. The important thing is to reach the roof. You can reach it by stone stairs, or by wooden stairs, or by bamboo steps, or by a rope. You can also climb up by a bamboo pole. Next, the small topic is many names of one God. You may say that there are many errors and superstitions in another religion. I should reply, suppose there are. Every religion has errors. Everyone thinks that his watch alone gives the correct time. It is enough to have yearning for God. It's enough to love him and feel attracted to him. Don't you know that God is the inner guide? He sees the longing of our heart and the yearning of our soul. Suppose a man has several sons. The older boys address him distinctly as Baba or Papa, but the babies can at best call him Ba or Pa. Now, will the father be angry with those who address him in this indistinct way? The father knows that they too are calling him, only they cannot pronounce his name well. All children are the same to the Father. Likewise, the devotees call on God alone, though by different names. They call on one person only. God is one, but his names are many. Thursday, August 24th, 1882.
Hang on just 1 minute. Well, a lot has been read. A lot has been said by the master. Is there anything that caught your attention that you'd like to comment on from your own wisdom or experience, or anything that raised a concern or a question? Anything at all that was said or read? This business of all children are seen the same by the Father, regardless of how they address him. And the only thing that is necessary is a yearning of the heart. These are two things that caught my attention. Anything catch yours that you'd like to comment on?
I like this, Shankara. God can be realized through all paths. All religions are true. The important thing is to reach the roof. That really caught me. That is very, very true.
Yes.
Finding the oneness. All of us are under the same sun, same moon, same stars.
Yes.
The air we breathe. None of us have any special air, regardless of rich, poor, or whatever you are, king or queen. So
Very nicely said, dear.
so true, so true. That
True indeed.
yes.
Anything else from anyone?
Yes, Shankaraji.
Hello, Bala.
Hi. This one, I liked it so much. Bhakti is the essential thing. To be sure, God exists in all beings. Who then is a devotee? I think that is most important thing as far as I'm concerned. He whose mind dwells in God. That's what really caught my
Very
eye.
nice. And a good catch. Yes. Who is the devotee? He whose mind dwells in God.
Yes. And the other thing also on the same in the same para, where the waters of God grace cannot collect on the high mound of egotism.
Yes. I've always loved that saying of the masters. Whenever you see someone who's egotistic, you think, what is going to collect on the summit of that,
Yes.
of that inflated self-opinion? Only just more inflated self-opinion, nothing more.
It stood out to me that right after he said that, he said, I'm a mere machine. Meaning, to me, I took that to mean that it running off the hill of egotism was just law.
Was just what again? I'm sorry, I missed that
Just
last.
law. Like it's just a mechanical logic process.
Yes, indeed. And over and over, Sri Ramakrishna says, I am thy machine, thou art the operator. And he stresses this again and again, speaking to Mother Kali. Thank you, Bhagavan Das. Anything else from anyone?
Yes. The other thing that really he was talking about, every religion has errors. So this is teaching us, okay, there are defects everywhere, but look at the bright side.
Yes. If you focus on the errors, this will be your downfall. That will be the subject of the next talk from here. This topic is simply the topic is B-U-T, facing your fears and doubts. And so we, yes, exactly. Exactly.
I come up against that a lot, in my family and people, but I can walk into any kind of church or temple and worship because, it's one God, many names.
Yes.
And it's all the same to me, but,
Yeah.
not for everyone.
Well, I tell you, dear, one of the wonders of that is, as you really embody that you just mentioned, when you walk into a church, you can feel the worship that has been done there, the sattva that the place is bathed in. And so it's so easy to sit down and begin your spiritual practice in that church, whether it's a Methodist church or a Catholic church, wherever it is that sincere worship has been done, particularly with a minimum of prejudice against others, then it's so sweet.
It really baffles me as to why everybody is so segregated and they don't realize that everybody for thousands of years have all been looking and talking about the same God. And, like it says, one God, many names. I mean, it's just every culture and language has its own terminology and names, but they're all talking about the same thing.
Yes.
So many of the religious texts are just repeat each other.
Sri Ramakrishna, in commenting on Dr. Sarkar and why Dr. Sarkar was so argumentative and and wanted to minimize holiness and spirituality. He said to Girish and Narendra, "Don't you see how afraid he is?" And that's the only explanation that has ever made sense to me, Bhagavan Das, about why people are so fierce.
To me, it's let go, let go, let go. The more you let go, the more it just comes, you know.
Yep, precisely. The more you let go, the more it comes. You're very well said. Thank you. Anything else from anyone?
I think it is the interpretation in the temples, churches, synagogues is different, Brother Shankara. If they all say, there are many paths to reach oneness and, all the same message that I just read, if every temple, every church, even though they pray their own, imaginary idol of God, but they just need to, I wish they would do that every place. It would be wonderful. That way people would understand we're all one. We're all one. Yeah.
We can pray for that, dear.
We can pray for that.
This is the prayer that Vivekananda uttered
Yes.
in his, I think, second or third talk
Yes.
at the Parliament of World Religions in 1893. Was when the banner of religions would be, we must come together.
Exactly.
But of course, that's not
It's not happening.
so very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is where he said, I did not come here to change anybody. I came here to make a Christian a better Christian, a Hindu a better Hindu.
Exactly.
Yes. Totally agree.
So let's just remember his words and do our best to embody that. Whatever it is we feel we are, let's be the best we can. And of course, that's what we're doing here this evening. That's why we're here, is to listen to that which inspires and lifts us up. Inspires us and lifts us up. Anything else from anyone before we go on? Yeah.
One God, multiple names. It actually reminds me a slightly funny story. The story goes like this. Little kids were asking some spiritual teacher, how can there be one God? You are talking about one God, but I know different gods, Jesus, Krishna, Buddha, and all that. So he explained the little kids in this way, what do you call your mother? And they said, Mom. What does your father call to your mother? They said, honey. And then he asked, does the delivery man who comes to deliver the package, does he call your mother honey? No. So there is one person and you all call by different names. So is the God. There is only one God, which is called by different names.
Beautiful little story. What a wonderful little story. Excellent. Yes. Thank you. A nice story. Very good illustration.
This is the same thing even Sri Ramakrishna gives, somebody, the water. Somebody calls water, somebody calls jala, somebody calls pani.
Yeah. Same water.
Yeah, same water.
Drink.
If you notice, like when you start getting into the mystic traditions, it really doesn't matter if it's Hasidic or Sufis or Christian mysticisms, the more similar they are.
Exactly.
You know, because they all have the same understanding.
That's why that book, Love Poems from God, is so informative, because behind the very pronounced differences of the tradition that these 12 saints come from, they all find the same truth, that God is inviting them. God is holding out his or her hand and saying, "Come dance with me." Mhm. You have not danced so badly, my sweet crushed angel. Mm. Beautiful poems. Anyone who hasn't had a taste of that book, I highly recommend it.
Good one. It's a great book, Brother Shankara. Their
It
stories
is
are
indeed.
so inspiring stories. Yes.
Shall we read on?
Yes.
Okay, let's go.
The devotees call on God alone, though by different names. They call on one person only. God is one, but his names are many. Thursday, August 24th, 1882. Sri Ramakrishna was talking to Hazra on the long northeast veranda of his room when M arrived. He saluted the master reverently. Next topic is spiritual disciplines necessary at the beginning. Master, I should like to visit Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar a few times more. The painter first draws the general outlines and then puts in the details and colors at his leisure. The molder first makes the image out of clay, then plasters it, then gives it a coat of whitewash, and last of all, paints it with a brush. All these steps must be taken successively. Vidyasagar is fully ready, but his inner stuff is covered with a thin layer. He is now engaged in doing good works, but he doesn't know what is within himself. Gold is hidden within him. God dwells within us. If one knows that, one feels like giving up all activities and praying to God with a yearning soul. So the master talked with the M, now standing, now pacing up and down the long veranda. Master, a little spiritual discipline is necessary in order to know what lies within. M, is it necessary to practice discipline all through life? Master, no, but one must be up and doing in the beginning.
Mhm.
After that, one need not work hard. Very true. The helmsman stands up and clutches the rudder firmly as long as the boat is passing through waves, storms, high wind, or around the curves of a river. But he relaxes after steering through them. As soon as the boat passes the curves and the helmsman feels a favorable wind, he sits comfortably and just touches the rudder. Next, he prepares to unfold the sail and gets ready for a smoke.
Mhm.
Likewise, the aspirant enjoys peace and calm after passing the waves and storms of woman and gold. Woman and gold is the obstruction to yoga. That's the topic. Some are born with the characteristics of the yogi, but they too should be careful. It is woman and gold alone that is the obstacle. It makes them deviate from the path of yoga and drags them into worldliness. Perhaps they have some desire for enjoyment. After fulfilling their desire, they again direct their minds to God and thus recover their former state of mind fit for the practice of yoga. Have you ever seen the spring trap for fish called the Satka call? No, sir. M says, no, sir, I haven't seen it. Master, they use it in our part of the country. One end of the bamboo pole is fastened in the ground, and the other is bent over with a catch. From this end, a line with a hook hangs over the water, with the bait tied to the hook. When the fish swallows the bait, suddenly the bamboo jumps up and regains its upright position. Again, take a pair of scales, for example. If a weight is placed on one side, the lower needle moves away from the upper one. The lower needle is the mind, and the upper one, God. The meeting of the two is yoga. Unless the mind becomes steady, there cannot be yoga. It is the wind of worldliness that always disturbs the mind, which may be likened to a candle flame. If that flame doesn't move at all, then one is said to have attained yoga. Woman and gold alone is the obstacle to yoga. Always analyze what you see. What is there in the body of a woman? Only such things as blood, flesh, fat, entrails, and the like. Why should one love such a body? Sometimes I used to assume a rajasic mood in order to practice renunciation. Once I had the desire to put on a gold embroidered robe, wear a ring on my finger, and smoke a hubble bubble with a long pipe. Madhur Babu procured all these things for me. I wore the gold embroidered robe and said to myself after a while, mind, this is what is called a gold embroidered robe. Then I took it off and threw it away. I couldn't stand the robe anymore. Again, I said to myself, mind, this is called a shawl, and this is a ring, and this smoking a hubble bubble with a long pipe. I threw those things away once for all, and the desire to enjoy them never arose in my mind again.
Now let's just pause for a moment.
Sure.
Notice the deliberate engagement with a particular desire. As he said, this desire arose in me. The person who supplied his needs, Mathur Babu, got them all for him. And one by one, he set them aside or threw them away, as he said. And not just temporarily, oh, I'll put the robe on again later. No, once for all, he set them aside. So this is our model for renunciation. If we're going to engage with desire, well and good. What can we do but say, I sincerely have this desire? But then once the desire has been fulfilled and we see its futility, the fact that there's nothing in it, then we can set it aside once for all. And this is such a wonderful model for us. Any comment from your own wisdom or experience, or any concern or question about that particular idea, those principles?
I have a question.
Yes.
I know Ramakrishna actually acquired the robe and the hubble bubble, but can you play out in your mind what it would be like to have a desire and cast it aside that way?
Yes, it's happened very much in my life. When I first started it along this spiritual path, I still had many desires for worldly success. I had a family to support, and so on. And then over the decades, that lessened. And so I was able to set aside my worldly career. Eventually, my wife left the body, and Swami Swahananda asked me if I wanted to come to Atlanta. And that meant taking monastic vows. So a number of things were set aside, very deliberately, yes, including the desire to be married again. If I was going to keep my monastic vows, I couldn't re-engage with the idea of being married. So I gave myself, with Swahananda's concurrence, I gave myself 3 years after I took those vows to say, well, at the end of that 3 years, I'll decide. Am I going to keep the vows and remain as a monk, or renounce them and return to a householder's life? So yes, those things were there. There are many more trivial things as well, but I hope that answers your question.
It does, Brother Shankar. Thank you.
Brother, maybe you can remember the exact quote, but I believe it was Ramakrishna talked about, if we're not ready to give up a desire, basically, we go and we surrender the desire, but then, he says we end up carrying them back with us.
Yes.
And, I've had that experience too. And that's why I love the story, and I asked Sarvadevananda about it, and he's like, oh, don't worry about it, and it'll take care of itself, and then I really came to understand this, that, the story about the sadhu who takes over the house. And it's really that process that unfolds that will eventually push out those desires.
Yes.
When the sadhu takes over the house.
Yep. And it is something, if you do your spiritual practices on a regular basis, it happens spontaneously and automatically, simply because you discover something more wonderful than you ever imagined would be there. And it is so much more, it is so preferable to the things of the phenomenal world and the senses. But until you do the spiritual work of self-discovery, you'll never believe it. You'll never, ever believe it. Your doubts and fears will keep you imprisoned. And that's why in the breaker of this world's chain, it says of Sri Ramakrishna, thou hast finished with fear and with doubt.
Also too, as much as you possibly can keep it and bring it to mind, keep your mind on God or the Ishta. And that itself will move the needle.
Yep.
To where it unfolds more and more, and it'll push out the desires.
Precisely. It is only our increasing realization of the truth of our true original nature, our divine being, that pushes out all the rest. Because when we have that true experience of the Saguna Atman, the truth of our being, which is only attained through spiritual practice, concentration and meditation, then when the truth of that is known, everything else, as Vivekananda points out, everything else is a secondary detail. You've manifested the divinity within, and it becomes clear that all the other things, books, temples, rituals, all of these are secondary details, not to mention the activities of everyday life, the duties that we must perform.
Totally agree with you, Brother Shankara. As we
Hmm.
progress through the meditation practices, as we manifest the self-realization within ourselves, the desires fall off like autumn leaves.
Yes,
They keep falling off. And then you just like, you're free. You feel free. You feel liberated. You're just like, you may get things for your children, grandchildren, but still, it's not like you can't live without those. You can't live, but for yourself, you can live without a lot of stuff.
well, you know, Christmas is coming,
Exactly.
and we will no doubt
Yeah.
procure and give gifts
With
to
children,
a number of people.
that's right.
We don't do anything. We don't do that out of any expectation of anything in return. We
Exactly.
do that simply out of love.
Because we want to give. We want to do.
But so if anybody gives us anything, we can receive it in that same spirit. And, you know, no doubt, all of us at this holiday season will receive some gifts.
That's right.
And so, as you say, for children, grandchildren,
We will.
and other friends and loved ones, that will be there. But it needn't entrap us in any way.
It's unconditional love. That's without
Yes,
conditions. We do it because our heart wants to do it. Like my
exactly.
dad used to say when I was growing up, when you give a gift, don't expect anything. You just give it because you want to give. Your
Yes.
heart wants to give. So you just give it, whether they dump it in the dumpster or use it, it's up to them. Just give it and then free. That's it. Don't expect anything like they didn't give me anything. No. So I practice it to the utmost. That philosophy is really ingrained in.
No,
You know, if you're keeping score and then it's just a business, it's a transaction.
right,
It's
right.
not love at that point.
But it's,
Free. You end up in misery all the time.
use the term unconditional,
Conditional, no
it's
condition.
no transaction.
Just
And
give it.
as you said in another context, Bhagavan Das, you know, Sarvadeva said, just don't worry about it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Just sail on past.
Well, you know, I was going to go back to something that Haima said, and it's like, you know, once you've manifested the divine, you can't unsee it.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's a paradigm shifting event that, you know, at that point, I mean, I guess you can fall back to the world but you still know it. And, you know, but I mean, for most people, you know, it starts to take over. And, you know, and you know, kind of get like, you know, where you get bit by the cobra, where your trajectory is, you know, imminent.
Yes, exactly. Yes, it's possible to backslide a little. There are those stories, but it won't last. It's simply not as powerful anymore. It's not powerful enough to hold you. Doesn't mean you don't need to be alert. Yes, we need to be alert, but there's nothing so powerful as to.
And coming from Buddhism side, right? That is the second noble truth, that expectation and desire, those are the cause of the suffering. So
Exactly.
Totally agree. Yes.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yes. So, would you repeat for us the Four Noble Truths?
if I could remember, I think the first one is everything in life is suffering.
Yes.
The second one is the cause of suffering is the desire. Everything is impermanent in this world. And the desire and expectation is the cause. Third one is marga. Basically, the first one is dukkha. Second one is I'm forgetting, but the third one is Marga or Maga, which is there is a path for the cessation of the suffering,
Mhm.
and to basically to enlighten yourself to get the nirvana. And the path, the fourth one is to follow the eightfold path,
Yes,
which is the right view, right living,
which
right occupation, and so on.
is essentially the Eightfold Path is
Yes.
essentially a combination of karma yoga and jnana yoga.
Yes, yes.
So yeah, you remembered them very well.
You know, I like it expressed in kind of like a medical term, in that, you know, one has to know that they're sick first. You have to know that there is sickness. Then you have to know that you're sick. And then you have to know that there is a cure for the sickness in order to manifest a desire to be well.
Mhm.
And the Eightfold Path is that cure.
Yep.
Absolutely. And I think the first one of the eightfold path is the right view, so that you first change your path before you move into the right speech or right action. First, you change your thought. So that's exactly how even the eightfold path goes to.
Exactly.
You know, and two, you know, the Eightfold Path moves you into a moral life, which, you know, a moral life is the beginning of a spiritual life. So, you know, but two, right thought, right speech, you know, all the same things Sri Ramakrishna says.
Yes.
And
Exactly.
one thing that really amazes me, you know, in the eightfold path, the last one is the meditation, which basically says you have actually gone through all the cleansing, the purification process of yourself. Then you are reaching to the highest path, which is meditation. Same thing, Raj Yoga also says, which is the seventh limb just before the samadhi, that,
Yes.
you know, you have to go through the yam, niyam, pranayam, pratyaharas, asan, dharana, then you reach to the meditation. So you have to go through all this purification before you reach that meditation state.
Yes.
Exactly.
Exactly. There's no shortcut. There is definitely an accelerant, and the accelerant is the grace of Sri Ramakrishna or one of the other great teachers. They came to be the accelerant. When Christ said, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all else shall be added unto you," all wisdom, all knowledge, all that was hidden will be revealed. He's saying, you know, I'll get behind it, I'll make it happen. Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I shall give you rest. My yoke is easy. So we find it wherever we look. Sri Krishna says it in the Gita. It doesn't even matter if the path that you follow is scriptural. If it doesn't have to follow the Vedic scriptural implications. And if it's sincere and you're following it sincere, I'll get behind it and make it happen. And Sri Ramakrishna says the same thing. I am the refuge. So come to me, take my invitation.
And I think what Haimaji was talking about, giving the gifts without expectation, it reminds me, I was reading Bible a couple of weeks back. Jesus said the same thing. If you are loaning somebody some money or giving somebody a gift with the expectation, then what good that gift or loaning is?
Yes.
You should be giving without any expectation in return. So that was such a great teaching.
Wonderful.
Yes, he says if you give something with expectation, he said, your offering is not accepted at the temple.
The selfish giving, when you're giving something you're expecting in return, I'm selfishly giving, looking for something else. So there's no really true giving from your heart. That's
No,
right.
and of course, much of our life in the world is transactional.
Mhm.
We go to the supermarket and we get some things and we pay some money and we come home. It's transactional. There can be love in all of that, but basically, for most of us, that's not the point. We can be very loving and congenial with the cashier or anyone that we encounter in the store, and all that will be good radiance, the sattva that we're spreading around the world. But, we have our duties to do, and many of them are transactional. It's coming up on December the 1st, and it's time to pay the rent on this place where I live. No ifs, ands, or buts. I either pay it or I won't live here. It's as simple as that. So it's a very, this is why the spiritual aspirant has to be able to hold two systems of thought in mind at the same time. The necessary worldly involvements and how to keep them from becoming entanglements, and the spiritual practices and the daily spiritual efforts that keep the world from being an entanglement.
I think there's a lot to be gained when you really pay attention and drill down into your motivations and finding out how it's all self-love. It may be masquerading as virtue or love or whatever, but it's all love of the self.
Very well said. It's one of Vivekananda's key ideas. Stop thinking that you're doing for others. All of your service is to purify yourself.
But you have to make that realization. You have
Yes.
to quit lying to yourself or quit fooling yourself. And
Right.
and it's just like what we say in AA, it's a selfish program. And
Yes.
people are taken aback by that at first because they're like, well, and then you have to realize, I'm not in the outcome business, or I need to stay out of the outcome business. I
Right.
can't, so I can't get anybody sober. I can't get them drunk. And if they do get sober, it's not by my power, it's by the power of God.
Right.
I do what I do for me. I can't do anything for them.
Right.
And it's the same thing.
But what you do for them is model behavior.
But I can't make an outcome.
Nope. And if you try, it's just self-defeating for you and for the other person.
So at that point, you have to realize I'm doing it for me.
Yes.
And you have to be mission orientated in that. And the spiritual life is no different.
Exactly. Exactly. And we have to remain focused. We have to remember that, just like being sober is something that you do moment to moment, hour to hour, day to day, the same thing is exactly true of our spiritual practices. Our spiritual practices are something that we are mindful of, not just when we're sitting on the cushion and making japam or doing visualization or whatever it is that we do.
So, it's like people, I think the Gita kind of gets at this a little bit, in that how can you claim to be taking moral action when it's all selfish action, really?
Well,
and you shouldn't fool yourself.
And Sri Krishna is very clear in how to escape that being a burden, the burden of karma. He said, live sacramentally, offer everything to me. And what is a sacrament? It's the visible and outward manifestation of an inward grace. So if we are offering everything to the divine, all actions, all thoughts, all perceptions, then
And to me, it's also offering the fact that I'm giving up the idea that I have power or I'm the doer.
yes, precisely. Precisely.
This is all what Vivekananda talks about in the Karma Yoga.
Yes,
When you see, even when you are giving something, not only you think that anything that you are doing it, say thanks to the people who received it, because you are cleansing your vasanas, or you are fructifying your all the karma. So thank them for giving that opportunity for you.
yes. There's that wonderful story in that Karma Yoga collection of talks about the birds who throw themselves into the fire,
Yes.
thanking the people
That's
for
a
consuming them
Yeah, that is a
so
wonderful
that they are released.
Well, it reminds me of St. Francis, how he invited criticism. And if people criticized him or whatever, he was actually thankful for the opportunity
Yes,
to be able to, practice and to have that. And I get it,
Actually, this is what in Rishikesh, all these sannyasis go to the place for the bhiksha. They go specifically to those houses where they curse them.
Mhm.
This is the how they want to develop their inner, intellect, not to get hurt with all these things. This is one of the practices they do.
but, well, that's a hard one.
Yes.
you have to keep in mind it's just a more clever disguise. And the quicker you can bring it to mind that it's just a disguise, another mask of the divine, the sooner you are not afflicted by the actions of other people.
Well, as is pointed out in his Song of the Sannyasin by Vivekananda, praiser praised, blamer blamed are one. Praiser praised, blamer blamed are one. Now to live that, to actually live that idea and not be inflated by praise or dejected by blame,
Yes.
understanding it's all one, all coming from one source, and all for your ultimate benefit. But this is the difficulty of spiritual practice, actually living these ideas, not just having them be something that we know in an intellectual sense.
Yeah, and then pay attention to how praise and all that binds you with the chains of gold, and the
Right.
other will bind you with the chain of iron if you let it.
Yep.
But once you've realized the process, you don't have to let it.
Anything else from anyone? All right, dear, please read on.
Okay, we have a few minutes. It was almost dusk. The master and M stood talking alone near the door on the southeast veranda. Master to M, the mind of the yogi is always fixed on God, always absorbed in the self. You can recognize such a man by merely looking at him. His eyes are wide open, with an aimless look, like the eyes of the mother bird hatching her eggs. Her entire mind is fixed on the eggs, and there is a vacant look on her eyes. Can you show me such a picture? I shall try to get one. As evening came on, the temples were lighted up. Sri Ramakrishna was seated on his small couch, meditating on the Divine Mother. Then he chanted the names of God. Incense was burned in the room where an oil lamp had been lighted. Sounds of conch shells and gongs came floating on the air as the evening worship began in the temple of Kali. The light of the moon flooded all the quarters. The master again spoke to M. Next topic is God and worldly duties.
Thank you, dear.
Huh?
We'll start again next week.
Okay.
Have any of you not visited a temple at the evening when they start the evening and hear the conch shells and the cymbals being played and the gongs? It's so elevating. Whoa, 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 on the conch, and the gongs going whoa, whoa, and the cymbals shh, shh. It really will thrill your heart. If you haven't had that experience, I highly recommend it. Anything else from anyone?
We went to a special Lakshmi Puja at Kali Mandir, and Elizabeth asked about you. But they had the conch shells there, and for that puja,
Yeah,
it's quite a sight.
yes, it is, and it's quite a sound. Anything else from anyone before we call it a night? All right. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga Durga Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. And may the mother and father that are part of the introduction prayer to these sessions, may we know that mother, father, divine being has us firmly and lovingly in a protective embrace. So until tomorrow evening, for those of you who decide to join us for the reading and discussion of Realizing God, thank you for coming. This is always such a joy. And any final thought from anyone? All right, away we go. And a great good night to you all. Sweet dreams.